That Beatles song, Taxman, right, which is a great song, is about that because they were being taxed so high. And I find it extraordinary. I was only thinking about that the other day, and I might have gotten this wrong. But I'm pretty sure this was a song that was angry about how high taxes are. And it says something of the culture. I can't imagine a song being written today that way round, because we're so culturally leftist that a band saying taxes are too high.
Yeah, I think when George Harrison wrote that, it was the early 60s, right? And I believe, if my memory's not wrong, I'm sure this can be Googled, the tax was something like 90%.
I think it was 90% as well.
Yeah. So, and that was sort of still in the aftermath of the war.
Yeah.
But it is true today that something like 67, 68% of young people have favorable opinion of socialism.
Wow.
Which is like utterly shocking to me. If you actually study socialism, and or just like basic economics, it's like obvious why that's a bad idea. And I believe now the majority of British households take more from the state than they put in. This attitude of thinking that taxing everything it's going to save everything. I mean, look, it's a whole other conversation, but it's kind of down to the Laffer curve. Laffer curve shows that the more you tax, the less you generate. And so there's a sweet spot where you tax a certain amount, you're going to get a maximum amount, but you keep taxing, all the wealth creators go. And that's why we're losing so many great people.
And it does relate to the culture as well. Firstly, because those great people are leaving and it changes the culture of this country. But also there was an article Jordan Peterson wrote recently in The Standard about anti-Semitism. And he said the litmus test for a society that's failing is the Jews. When people turn on the Jews, when there's a rise in anti-Semitism, it tends to be because of the perception of Jews overachieving, whether the perception is true or not. So I think it probably is, but that's another conversation. But it tends to signify a country that has stopped caring very much about meritocracy and success and doing well. Do you see that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really the spirit of envy.
Yeah,
it's the spirit of Cain.
Yeah,
and then certainly that's what Jordan Peterson talks a lot about. And you listen to a lot of the dialogue. I mean, we know that between 100 and 140 million people have been killed in socialist and communist societies across the world, and it's the. I was reading. This is going to be might sound a bit drastic, but so I'm going to think out loud for you.
Okay.
But I was reading scripture and the story of King Solomon, and it's one of the first stories about King Solomon. It's quite a famous story. Two whore women who both have a child, and one of them loses the child and takes the other woman's child in the night and claims it's her child. And then the one whose child it really was like, that's my child, and very upset. They both go to King Solomon, and he says, they're both saying it's my child, and he has to judge which child it is. And he goes, okay, so we can't decide, so we're going to cut the baby in half, you can have half each. And of course, the real mother says, no, don't do that. She can have the mother, and she can have the child. And so King Solomon says, okay, so obviously you're the mother, you can have the baby. Now, think about the woman who's prepared to have this baby murdered because she was grieving and angry about her having lost her own child. She's prepared to have not only this baby destroyed, but that it would the pain it would cause for the other mother. And that is this. I think the spirit of Cain. Like, life is unfair, and life is suffering. That's the universal. And so when you see other people happy, you can be jealous, and everyone feels jealousy to some degree, maybe some a lot more than others. And a lot of the spirit of socialism is, I'd rather that we all have nothing than you have something and I have a little bit more. I guess a lot of it comes down to, would you rather have inequality but less poverty, or poverty and less inequality?
And I think humans, unfortunately, are wired evolutionarily to prefer both people to do worse, providing there's less inequality.
Except that in America, I just don't feel that. In America, you go there and it's like, good for you, man.
Yeah.
Well done.
But you have to work on that. I don't think that's natural. I think that is, from the studies I've seen on children, you see children, they've got a biscuit or a cookie. If Americans are listening, they got a cookie and the other kid's got a cookie or whatever. But if the other kid has two cookies and they've got one, then they're not happy anymore. They would rather neither of them has a cookie. And that's human psychology. So I think it's something that we all feel. And I don't think we should, I think we need to move away from that shame, because I have that shame. I'm sure you've done on YouTube or whatever we're trying to do, whatever listeners, whatever they do in their career, where they've seen a friend or a family member and they've had that pang of, oh, is that bitterness inside me? And I think you need to not go, oh, now I feel ashamed for feeling bitter. It's that I can't control that. I'm a human being. I felt that bitterness. I'm wired that way. But what I can do is try to sort of override that and go, no, that's silly. I'm not angry at myself. I had that feeling. That's silly. I'm going to try and make sure we both succeed. And that takes a willingness and a philosophy that's been embedded in American society that we simply do not have in the UK.
I mean, to be fair to young people who are leaning towards socialism, young people have been screwed in this country. The average age of buying or getting on the property ladder is shot up, and as a consequence, the average age of having your first child has shot up, and now many people are just not having children. The economic system we have had has failed, but the answer to that isn't socialism. That's like sort of saying to cure a toothache you need a lobotomy. I mean, it's insanity, and but there needs to be a serious chat about economics and the current tax system and we need a big overhaul of what's going on. But that's a conversation for another day, I think.